If you've ever wondered whether prompt engineering is still worth it in 2026, right now might be the best time to learn it, but not the way you've been told. Because it's not just about getting better answers out of AI anymore. It's about actually getting quality results before everyone else even figures out how to use it. In this video, I'll show you what still works, what's a complete waste of time, and the one thing that actually sets you apart from most people using AI. Because prompt engineering in 2026 is almost unrecognizable from where it started just 2 years ago. Back in 2022, and 2023, prompt engineering was basically just experimenting in a chat box. You'd type something, watch it break, reword it, try another instruction, and run it again until it behaved. There were almost no evals, no versioning, and nobody really owned how it behaved once it was live. It was all manual trial and error. And that made sense back then, because the models were new and inaccurate, so one small change in wording could completely change the output. That's what those phrasing tricks were built for, since the models were so chaotic that the exact wording really mattered. By 2026, a few big things changed at once. The models got way better at simply following instructions, so you stopped needing to trick them to behave the right way. The reasoning models now, like GPT-5, Claude Opus 4.8, and Gemini 3.1 Pro, already think the problem through on their own before they answer. That's why giving them step-by-step instructions barely does anything now. Structured output and tool calling became standard. Now, you don't just put prompts into the chat box, but you also have to get better understanding of coding, configs, and pipelines. But the biggest change is that companies stopped playing around and started shipping AI to real users at scale. Once that happened, just writing a clever prompt stopped being enough on its own. So the whole practice completely changed, and the old way of prompting died right along with the weak models it was built for. But even though the old way of prompting died, there's still something that works incredibly well, and always will. And people who actually make money with AI and understand it focus on this one thing. This one thing is just being clear about what you actually want, so the model and tool you use won't get confused. A good prompt in 2026 still comes down to naming a few things: the goal, the context the model can't already see, the limits you want it to stick to, the format you want it in, and who it's for. That's it. And there's even a shortcut people use called RTF, Role, Task, Format, which on its own handles about 80% of everyday prompting. When that's not enough, you add context and an example, and that's basically it. And this isn't the weak option. Structured prompts still clearly beat improvised ones on every current model, whether it's GPT-5, Claude, or Gemini. A smarter model doesn't magically know what you meant. It just guesses better. And it still guesses wrong the second you leave something important out, which is the biggest mistake people still make, assuming the model already knows things it has no way of knowing. It can't see your screen, and it has no idea what your goal is or who the output is even for. So when you skip all that, it just gives you the most generic answer it can, and then you blame the model. And it still matters in whatever you do. If you're building apps, you have to be good at prompting your coding tools. If you're a product manager, you're in tools like ChatGPT or Gemini all day, so prompting them well is just part of the job. The one place prompt engineering survives as its own separate thing leans way more toward testing than building product. It's people stress testing models to find where they break, not shipping the actual feature. So getting good at prompting the right way is still necessary. You just have to be clearer and more specific now, and that keeps working on every model this year and the next one. But being good at this and actually getting paid for it are two very different things in 2026, and that difference is where it starts falling apart. Because people who want to get a serious AI role now still have this one major doubt. Everyone keeps asking if prompt engineer is still a job, but there are really two questions in there. One is whether prompt engineer as a title is worth chasing. The other is whether being good at prompting is worth your time. Look at the title first, because the numbers will tell you everything. From 2024 to 2026, the standalone prompt engineer job dropped by about 30%, and one Microsoft survey put it near the very bottom of the roles companies plan to add. About 68% of companies now just train everyone on prompting instead of hiring one person to do it. So as a dedicated title, it's fading very fast. But at the same time, the roles that need prompting skills grew roughly 3 times over, no matter what the title was, which means the demand didn't decrease, it just spread into basically every job AI is involved in. And even in the roles that still hire for this directly, writing prompts is only about 30% of the actual work now. The other 70 are things like running evals, testing for reliability, watching cost, and fixing the output when it goes wrong, which is the real reason just being the prompt guy stopped being a career on its own. So the honest answer is actually both at once. Chasing the title is close to pointless now, but the skill behind it has never been more wanted. And that other 70% isn't just busy work. It points straight at one specific skill that barely existed a couple of years ago. It's an improved and much more significant version of prompt engineering. It's called context engineering, the thing that blew up over the last few years, but it was always just a part of a bigger job. The simplest way to see the difference: prompt Prompt engineering is about what you say to the model. Context engineering is about everything the model sees before it even answers. Let me show you what that actually looks like. A couple of years ago, prompting in ChatGPT meant typing something like, "You're a helpful assistant, answer my questions clearly and concisely." Then you'd tweak that wording over and over, adding a tone, a few examples, some formatting rules, until it answered the way you wanted. That was everything you had to do. With context engineering, that same prompt is still in there, but it's only a little part of what's going on. So let me walk you through everything that's tied to it. First, there's the system instruction, which sets the model's role, its boundaries, and the safety rules it has to follow. Then there's the developer message, which tells it how to approach the task and how the output should be structured. You've also got retrieved documents, real information pulled in while it runs, so it's answering from facts instead of whatever it happens to remember. There's the state and history, keeping track of where the user is in the task and what's already happened so far. Separate from that, there's memory, the longer-term things, like preferences and past interactions that shape how it should answer next time. Then tool outputs feed in live data straight from APIs, databases, and other services. And a schema forces the answer into a fixed shape so the rest of the system can actually use it, while model routing decides which model should even handle the request in the first place. All of that together is the context. And as a context engineer, that whole process is your job. You're designing what the model sees, when it sees it, and what shape it's in, not just wording one prompt. None of this lives in a chat box anymore. It's all built into code and pipelines now. So every time it runs, all that context just gets put together around your prompt automatically. That's also why a genuinely smart model still fails with bad context. Most breakdowns now aren't the model. They're the context being wrong or missing. In fact, research shows more than 40% of AI project failures come down to poor or missing context, not the model. That's exactly why context engineering is the skill teams are investing in now. So the real skill stopped being the wording and turned into designing everything the model gets to see. That shift is exactly why companies are paying real money for this, but not for the reason you'd probably guess. And the numbers behind it are honestly bigger than you'd expect. Being good at prompting on its own doesn't make you stand out, so you can't really charge more for it. But the moment you can run the context side, you can make six figures consistently. The national average sits around $130,000, with most of the band running from about $95,000 up to $200,000. And what really sets this apart from most AI skills is the direction it's going. The pay keeps going up every single year. So once you're hired, you don't have to worry about what's next, because it's one of the most in-demand roles out there right now. So whatever you heard about this not being worth it, the numbers tell you everything, which finally answers the question we started with, just probably not the way you were hoping. So here's the honest verdict. Prompt engineering is absolutely worth learning in 2026, just not the way people were selling it to you. Don't learn it as a job title, and definitely don't search for any magic prompts because it's just a waste of time. Learn it as a baseline skill instead, because you can honestly understand the real fundamentals in a couple of days. It's just being clear about the goal, the context, the limits, the format, and who it's for. That part is the baseline now. Everyone who touches AI is expected to have it, but the fundamentals aren't the whole thing. They're just the way in. The point is to use them to get into context engineering, because that's the side that actually sets you apart and actually makes you get paid. This really is the best moment to do it, because the context side is still early enough that getting good at it now puts you ahead before everyone else figures it out. That's also the difference between just taking answers out of a model and actually controlling what it does, which is the whole reason any of this is worth your time. Now, if you actually want to start, here's the fastest way to do it. Get the fundamentals first, like what's the goal, the formatting, the constraints, and what are the specific needs of an audience. And that's really just using a model with some intent every day instead of typing some general prompts. Then go straight into the context side by building one small thing. Take a tool you already use, feed it your own documents, give it a system instruction and a couple of steps to run on its own, and watch how much precise the answers get. You don't need a degree or an expensive course for any of this. The model maker's own docs and a few free tutorials on retrieval and agents are enough to help you get good. And you'll know you're genuinely ready to go for one of these roles when you can build a setup around a model that handles a real, messy task reliably and do it at least a couple of times. Then you can be sure you'll get hired soon. So learn the basics fast, then put your real effort into context engineering. That's what actually sets you apart. And getting in early is exactly why right now is the best time. But all that knowledge from this video won't actually work for you, no matter how hard you try, if you don't know how to build these AI systems. But I broke down exactly how I build them from scratch, so you can learn this quickly. So go click the video on screen right now and watch how it all comes together so you can get into context engineering faster and easier. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.